All right, with the voice of the Bills, good old friend Chris Brown. How you doing, Brownie?
That's it. I haven't heard that intro in a while. Okay, that'll work. Yeah,
And I, and, and,
doing
and
good.
I don't mean old as in old. I mean old as in we go way back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Old.
No, I got
Okay.
it.
All right. Fair,
We are
fair.
older though
I
than
am. I'm a
than that
lot
point in
older.
time.
Yes, I am a lot older, and I'm okay with that. Well, sort of, not really. Um, hey, before we get into the Jet game and the Dolphin game, kind of cool at this back-to-back divisional games, but how do you, as a play-by-play guy, work with this short week? I'm bugging you during this short week, and you were kind enough to come on and do this with me. But how does it work for you? I mean, you got to cram stuff in pretty quickly too, just like the players and the
Yeah.
coaches do.
Fortunately for us, some of the other weekly content that we put together, like Steve and I do a weekly podcast, Bills by the Numbers, that gets scrapped for the week because it'll be dated before we even get it recorded. Um, and there's other weekly shows that I do that are scrapped in-house just because of the short week. So some stuff gets taken off our plate, which helps immeasurably. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's quite what the coaches do because they're working 16-hour days to begin with, and they basically lose 3.5 days and they still have to cram it all in. And so do the players. I get a few things taken off my plate, so that helps. But yeah, it's still a cram session. Steve and I were talking about it. I kind of liken it to finding out you have a final exam that you forgot about, and and it's in 2 days,
That's
and
awesome.
so you got to just jam it all in.
That is so good. And look, listen, I mean, both teams are pretty familiar with each other. I mean, obviously the coaching staffs are virtually the same. A lot of the players are still the same. There have been handfuls of changes on both sides of the ball for both teams, but generally they have a pretty good idea of what they do, right?
Yeah, I would say that's fair, right? So division opponents, so they see each other twice a year. Now this is the first meeting. So I think there are some unknowns there. And I was just going going through my boards over here for the Dolphins defense because usually what I do is I type up my own boards. I feel like I retain who's who and who's what number and all that information if I'm inputting it myself instead of sending it out to, a service to do it for me. And and what I'll do is especially for division opponents, I'll go back into my files and start with last year's board and then just make whatever changes I need to make. And for the Dolphins defense, there were a lot of changes. Like the entire secondary is new, partly due to injury, but also partly due to turnover. The linebackers are new. You got guys back from IR like Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, who were not in the lineup last year. And so Zach Sealer and Chop Robinson were like the only guys back from last year's team on the defensive front. Tyrell Dotson joined after the Bills had already played them twice. He's new. And the whole secondary, like I said, is new. So I think while they know the team and the scheme, a lot of the personnel matchups are going to be different, particularly when the Bills are on offense.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I'll go back to the Dolphins. I want to go back to the Jets, though. First of all, obviously, we all know what happened to Josh. How is he doing? I mean, you see him around the facility. He seems, from what we've seen on social media, to be pretty normal. He's got the visor, but this isn't the first time he's done that.
Right. He used to wear the visor a lot in practice because the way the grass practice field and the stadium field for that matter face west, and they're usually practicing in the afternoon, so he just likes it. He used to have like a colored visor that he used to wear, kind of like sunglasses at practice. And today, well, I shouldn't say today, but this week he had a clear visor on, but I think that's to get accustomed to how much warmer it's going to be in there. I think he wants to see whether he's got to use a towel and wipe it down like we see the hockey players do all the time, because I don't think it's going to prevent him from busting his nose again if somebody hits his mask in the brow of his helmet the same way. But I do think it'll prevent anybody from accidentally poking him in there and, cracking his nose again, which is not going to feel good. Because if you've ever busted your nose, and I have, you literally see stars if you take it a good enough shot. So I think he's trying to avoid that. You can't avoid his helmet being wrangled around a little bit, but he can avoid a or prevent a finger or a hand or an elbow from coming in there.
I've known you a long time, and my guess is that your broken nose did not happen in a bar fight.
No, no, it happened in high school. We were at high school basketball practice, and I'm there to take a charge. Don't ask me why I'm taking a charge in practice. But one of my teammates thought he was Michael Jordan and he could jump, but he not like that. And so I don't know, he thought he was going to sky over me for like a finger roll in the lane. And he came up woefully short and his elbow came straight down on my, you
Oh,
can see it's a little bent up still.
yeah,
And
yeah,
he came straight down on the thing. And the funniest thing, I was thinking about this when I saw that Josh, he's probably got a broken nose. He's never going to tell us whether it
right.
is um, but I thought back to when my dad had to take me for x-rays. It was the most ridiculous radiology appointment I've ever had in my life. I'm only 16. I've never gone for x-rays before. So we're going to check to see if the thing's broken. I'm basically sliding it back and forth. I know it's broken. The tip, anyway, is busted off. So I go to radiology. They take me in the back room, and this guy sits me down, and immediately I'm like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing because so like you think for like a busted nose, they sit you in the chair, they turn you sideways, they take the profile x-ray, they take the straight on x-ray, and then they can probably tell you what's wrong with your nose. This guy takes me into like the main room where they lay you out on a table for like a full body scan x-ray. And I'm like, what's all this? And so he basically made me put my head down on the table like that. And then this was the best one. So if this is the end of the table,
Yeah,
he's like, all right, I need you to sit your nose on the end of the table. We're going to take a shot from up top like this. It's going to shoot down. So I'm not joking. I'm like, I'm sitting there and I'm 16 and I don't know anything about radiology. And I'm sitting there going, there's no way this is right. So, but I just follow the instructions. So there I am with my nose on the end of the table like this. And he took the x-ray, right? So I go back in the waiting room. We're waiting for the results. I'm sitting there with my dad. Sure enough, this other guy comes out and he's got this look on his face. And he comes up to my dad and he's like, Mr. Brown, I'm really sorry. We didn't get any readouts on the x-rays we just took of your son. It was his first day. The guy that's on call today, he goes, I'm just going to take your son in the back for 10 minutes. We're going to take some profile x-rays and just confirm that this is broken. I'm really sorry. I
wow,
was like, what the heck is
wow.
I was sitting there like this on the table. Unbelievable.
Your radiologist literally stayed at a Holiday Inn Express that night or the night before, right?
Yeah, it
Not even a
was,
radiologist. You just happened to be there.
I don't know who it was.
Wow.
The guy had no idea what he was doing.
That's incredible. Couple more on the Jets. Defensively, and I know, look, week one in the NFL, no one ever knows. And a lot of people jump to conclusions after week one. And I think the experts always say, well, you really don't know what week one really means, right? You saw the Jets and the Steelers, everyone's assuming, wow, the Jets are new and they're so much better. And look what they did on both sides of the ball, blah, blah, blah. And then I think, the Bills come in and it feels like, well, this is the Jets that we've known for a really long time, right? They have a new coach and everything, they have a new quarterback, but they're still virtually the same. And I want to start on defense. Obviously, the Bills defense got a lot of gruff after the Raven game. There were a
Mhm.
lot of injuries, but man, I'm watching that game and I felt like Bobby Babich had them so dialed in regardless on who was playing. And Bosa was phenomenal, but most impressive to me was the run support from the DBs in that game.
Yeah, and in the McDermott system, if you're playing outside corner, you have to demonstrate an ability and a willingness to support the run. If you don't, you do not play in this system. People would ask me year after year after year, like, why is Kyer Elam unable to get on the field? He seems to be physically gifted and has the requisite skills to cover guys in pass coverage. And it took him a couple of years to get the memo, but he would not support the run in a way that was adequate or sufficient in the eyes of the defensive staff. And there were other guys more willing to do it. And it's why people like Jamarcus Ingram and Christian Benford would get on the field before him. That was the main reason why he couldn't get on the field here when he was in a Bills uniform. So yeah, you better be prepared to do it and do it well. And I think they did. I think Bobby Babich would also admit that he did get lucky a couple of times, like the Christian Benford tackle for loss in the backfield. That's a run blitz, and the guy's coming around on the end around right
Right,
to him.
right.
Like that's just that's a lucky break that you got there. But hey, you're in the position to make a big tackle for loss. Christian Benford still had to make the tackle, and he did it. But yeah, it was a lot better alignment, assignment, execution in the run front. I do think there were a handful of run plays there where the Jets had the opportunity to get some good yardage, keep themselves on schedule, and be in favorable down and distance. And for whatever reason, their line just did not execute nearly as well as they had the week before. So I think it was a combination of the Bills being more buttoned up and executing their stuff better, while the Jets did not look nearly as good as they did last week with some of the same run plays that were very effective for them a week prior.
For sure. Everything looking so favorable after 2 weeks for the Bills. I mean, obviously the Jets with their situation, the Dolphins with their situation. Yeah, the Patriots get the win, but they're still arguably a bit shaky. Then Burrow goes down in Cincinnati. I mean, there's a lot. The Broncos lose. Now Indy is the Cinderella in the conference after 2 weeks. So interesting how things are shaking out just after 2 weeks, and that's why we watch the game because it makes it so much interesting. But let's fast forward to the Dolphins. Obviously, the Dolphins still have big play weapons that can hurt you in terms of Achane and Hill and Waddle, obviously.
Yes, and Achan has kind of been the beneficiary of the attention by the Bills defensively being on Waddle and Hill. They play top down defense, as you know. They don't want anything going over their head for big plays, and they've done a pretty good job of it the last few times they've played them. I don't think Tyreek Hill's had over 100 yards against them in a long time, and Waddle has had his moments, but I think they've largely kept those two guys in check and not given up the quick score or the 5 play scoring drive. Instead, they forced Miami to work the ball all the way down the field, sustain long scoring drives, and that's kind of helped the Bills come out on top. And all the Bills defense really has to do is get a stop or two, because Buffalo's offense has been so successful against their defense. All of a sudden, the Dolphins are behind, and now they feel like they're playing catch up every time they have the ball. Um, Achan has been the problem. And maybe it's because you can't cover up everything. And so he's been the beneficiary. But the Dolphins, as we know, is an offense that can stretch you vertically and horizontally, and that spreads your defense out. It creates space. And Devon Achan is extraordinary in space because he runs a 4.32 40 and, is quick as a hiccup. So I think he has exploited them, been the beneficiary of light boxes because you have guys back to cover deep. So he's really hurt them. He's got 6 touchdowns in 4 career games against the Bills. And I think I know he's got at least 1 or 2 days where he's over 100 total yards from scrimmage. So I don't think the focus shifts totally to him, because I think they'd prefer to have Tua hand it off rather than throw it 50 yards down the field to Tyreek or to Waddle. But I'm curious to see what the plan is this time around. Because if you remember the Week 9 matchup last year, it takes a 61-yard field goal from Tyler Bass with 5 seconds left to win that game. Like, the second half starts, and I think, if I remember right, Miami turns it over and doesn't score on their first possession of the second half. But after that, every possession, either team scored. It was like a ping pong match in the second half, and it's tied at 27, like late in that game. And the Bills can only, get so far as, the low 40 area in Dolphins territory. And, Bass has to come up big, and he did.
Prater's been great for the Bills so far, and
Yeah.
a wonderful acquisition by Brandon Beane to have him in place with Tyler's injury, obviously. But staying on the Dolphins, I mean, shockingly, you mentioned those guys up front for them that they were missing a year ago. They're back and they're really talented players. And yet, after 2 weeks, they've had virtually no pass rush whatsoever.
Yeah, Chubb's got a couple of sacks. Chop Robinson's a little dinged right now. And I don't know if Jalen Phillips is ever going to be like the same guy again. Like Achilles injuries are really bad. Um, ACLs aren't easy either. I mean, we've seen how long it took Tre'Davious White to kind of get back to kind of the guy he used to be. It's hard. It's a long road. And for a guy that plays at a position that requires suddenness, burst, and explosion, it takes a while for that to come back. So I don't know that Jalen Phillips is all the way back yet either. Um, all that being said, I don't think the guys up front are getting a lot of help on the back end because the secondary is number one shorthanded. Their top corner, Storm Duck, he didn't play last week. It's not looking great for this week on a short week. We'll have to see if he's up or not. And when he's out of the lineup, they're really scraping the bottom of the barrel here. They signed Rasul Douglas in late August because they were shorthanded. And the guys they've got in there, like I know Bills fans are going to watch this game, and outside of Rasul Douglas, they're going to go, who's that guy? Like who is that? Like because they're all new in the Dolphins secondary, and they're really struggling. I mean the completion percentage allowed through 2 games is almost 79%. It's
That's
the
crazy.
worst. It's the worst in the league. But like, think of that. Like your opposing quarterbacks are completing 80% of their passes,
Well,
and the quarterbacks they played in the first 2 weeks were Daniel Jones and Drake May. I mean, it
right.
wasn't like, Dan Marino and Jim Kelly. You're playing like middle of the pack quarterbacks, and it's 80% completion against. We hear Coach McDermott say it all the time. He loves marrying the pass rush with the coverage, and the Bills do a pretty good job of syncing that up most weeks. The Dolphins have not done that at all defensively, and it's part of the reason why, they've given up 33 points a game. It's really been rough.
Yeah, I mean, everything points to the Bills' favor as much as they've given up and as much as the Bills are scoring. I mean, obviously last year, based on what you brought up, was a different game from normal for these two teams, right? The Bills typically dominate Miami. Josh Allen, Bills teams have typically dominated Miami historically. No different Thursday night.
Yeah, you'd like to say that. I think there was some traction that the Miami offense developed in the scope of that game. Their problem was they just kept shooting themselves in the foot, and their offensive line is still an issue. They're trying to turn that over and revamp that. Their former second round pick, Patrick Paul, has replaced Teron Armstead at left tackle. He's quite literally learning on the fly. They brought in a veteran guard in James Daniels to have some kind of veteran presence on the line. He's on injured reserve after 1 game. And then Austin Jackson, one of their only holdovers from last year, in addition to Aaron Brewer at right tackle, you know, covering to his blind side, he's on IR after just 1 game played. So the whole right side of your line, which was working together for the first time to begin with Daniels and Jackson, they're both out of the equation now. And now you got Keon Smith, a career backup, and the guy at right tackle is Larry Borum, who has starts in the league, but he played for a horrible Chicago Bears offensive line as a starter up there before they said, hey, we got to do better than this. And they jettisoned him out and didn't re-sign him. So that's what they're working with over there. And I kind of went through the game that they played last week against New England. They gave up 5 sacks. It's a little skewed because some of those sacks came at the very end of the game when the Dolphins were down and they knew they had to throw. So, the Patriots were just coming after them,
Yep.
pinning their ears back. But still, in all, there were 6 penalties on offensive linemen through the course of that game. I think it was 2 false starts, 4 holding calls. It was a mess. It's early in the season. They have not fit all those pieces together. And on the road to boot with a loud atmosphere, prime time in Buffalo, I don't know if they're going to be terribly functional. I certainly don't anticipate they're going to be scoring, 27, 30 points. And if they score less than 20, they're not winning this game.
And by the way, one of the themes of the first 2 weeks for the Bills has been the other teams shooting themselves in the foot, right? Making mistakes, forced or unforced,
Yep.
doesn't matter. That's a big reason why the Bills, were winners in both of the first two games. Brownie, thank you for taking some time out in this very short week for you. I appreciate it more than you know. And the nose story was absolutely epic. I will never forget that. Thank you so much, my man.
Yeah, thankfully that's the only thing, knock on wood, that well, no, I can't. That's not the only thing I broke. I broke two ribs
Ooh,
falling down a flight of stairs. I banana peeled on stairs on Christmas Eve 2020, as if the COVID year was not bad enough to begin with. I
right.
banana peeled on the stairs Christmas Eve. I split two ribs, like I splintered two ribs in my back. And,
Ouch.
but my nose was still the most entertaining
For sure.
radiology story.
Thanks, man. We look forward to the call on the radio on Thursday night. Thanks, man.
Sure thing. Good to be with you.
Appreciate you.